After my graduation cake was thrown on the floor, I discovered an amazing lesson in resilience. The room was alive with laughter and clinking glasses, the air thick with the scent of fried chicken and homemade potato salad. Emily Thompson stood near the back, a knot in her stomach tightening as she surveyed the scene unfolding in front of her. This was it, the day she had dreamt of since she was a little girl, the day that represented not just her hard work, but her parents' sacrifices. Yet with every smile around her, the weight of expectation pressed down harder. What if it wasn't enough? What if her success only brought disappointment where joy should be? As the festivities flowed, the atmosphere shifted. Tension draped over them like a thick fog when her estranged father walked through the door, facial muscles taut, eyes scanning the crowd. Emily's heart raced. How much had he heard? What kind of chaos would he unleash? Memories of yelling matches and bitter silences flooded her mind. A small voice in her head screamed for her to leave, to escape the impending storm. But the truth anchored her feet to the floor. This was her moment. She had worked too hard to let anything or anyone ruin it. Suddenly, Linda, her mother's childhood friend, confronted her father, words slipping through clenched teeth like daggers. The gathering turned quiet, tension sparking like electricity in the air. Emily could feel everyone's eyes on her, and her chest tightened. How would she navigate this? The fear of being pulled into a spat lay heavy in her throat. Hadn't she wanted this day to be full of pride and love, a testament to her accomplishments? Before she could process, chaos erupted. With one furious motion, Linda shoved a plate into her father's hands, and in the confusion, the beautifully decorated graduation cake went sailing through the air, a pink and white blur before crashing onto the floor. The creamy icing splattered onto tiles, mocking the enthusiasm around her. Emily's vision blurred, and she felt a panic drop in her stomach like a brick. It mirrored her own shattered dreams, an explosion of color and sweetness gone in a moment. Lost in disappointment, she couldn't breathe. Her whole life had been leading up to this day, and now it felt like it had all been swept away with the cake. How could she celebrate after such public humiliation? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days passed, and each morning greeted Emily with the same heaviness in her heart. The fracture within her family loomed in her mind like a looming shadow. She began confiding in her mentors, who gathered around her like beacons of light. Their stories of resilience, though uplifting, made her inner turmoil scream louder than ever. As she wrestled with what to take from her tumultuous relationship with her father, a profound realization clawed its way to the surface. What did success even mean for her? She found herself questioning everything: the expectations, the facades, the pressure to be the perfect daughter. As she confronted each complex layer of her identity, the anger and sorrow melded into determination, but moments of doubt still engulfed her, each experience leaving her feeling more fragmented than whole. Then, in the quiet moments when she delved deeper, she uncovered something buried, a family secret that turned her perspective upside down, filling her with uncertainty and fear. The realization pulled at threads she didn't know existed, making her question everything about loyalty and love. Standing at this crossroads, the echoes of heartbreak and resilience danced in her mind, pulling her toward an uncertain future. Would she rise up, or would the weight of her family's chaotic legacy drown her before she could even begin? The unanswered questions loomed heavy as she braced for the next chapter in her life, her heart pounding in a symphony of hope and dread. Emily felt trapped in the confines of her own mind, the suffocating reality of her family's dysfunction mingling with her personal aspirations. Each day served as a punishment, dragging her further into an abyss where the weight of expectation cut deeper. She found herself frequenting coffee shops to escape, ensconcing herself in the gentle hum of conversations around her while feigning focus on her work. Yet she couldn't drown out the thoughts haunting her. The days turned into weeks, and each interaction with her mother was strained, each attempt at normalcy a reminder of what had unraveled that day. Emily sought solace in writing, pouring her frustrations into pages that lay scattered across her room like remnants of an emotional battlefield. With every word, she discovered fragments of herself, hidden voices that once cowered in the shadows. One afternoon, while editing a particularly poignant piece about familial relationships, a revelation gripped her. It wasn't only about confronting her estranged father, but challenging her own narrative, the one in which she'd been cast as a powerless victim. Each word she crafted turned from an echo of despair to a declaration of defiance. She was not just a daughter, but an individual with ambitions that demanded attention and respect. This newfound strength egged her on. Emily deduced that she needed to redefine her understanding of success, not through the lens of familial approval, but through her own compass, a meticulous calibration of ambition peppered with self-love and acceptance. In these moments of clarity, Emily turned inward, examining the revelation she had stumbled upon about her family. Was it possible that the chaotic legacy she had inherited offered untapped strength? Resilience was not just about surviving it all, it was about reshaping the narrative, using it as a catalyst for personal growth. Each insight felt like a brush carving out the contours of her identity, illuminating her path forward. Then came the decision that would challenge everything. Emily resolved to confront her father, to seek clarity rather than confrontation. The thought made her stomach churn, yet a perverse excitement percolated beneath her fear. The time had come to face the chaos rather than flee from it. In preparation, she rehearsed her words, breathing life into her emotions that had long been stifled under the weight of expectation. On the day of the confrontation, Emily stood in front of the mirror, echoing her own sentiments. "You are not defined by him," she whispered to her reflection, the woman staring back, poised for battle, ready to reclaim her narrative. Arriving at the cafe where they agreed to meet, Emily observed her father from across the room, his posture rigid, eyes darting around, as if hunting for an escape. The table between them, a symbolic barrier of resentment and misunderstanding, seemed to hum with their unspoken history. Every step toward him felt like walking through a minefield, each word she practiced running through her mind in a loop. Questions of loyalty spiraled within her, but she wouldn't lose her voice this time. "Dad," she started, her voice steady but trembling at the edges, "we need to talk." The weight of years hung heavy, an invisible curtain that half shrouded their past. But for the first time, Emily felt the power of choice resting firmly in her grasp. In that moment, she understood. It was about more than healing old wounds. It was about forging a new future for herself, one she could finally own. What lay ahead was daunting, but the thought of facing it ignited a fire within her. Feeling the tentative stirrings of courage, she prepared to tear the layers apart, to weave a new legacy from the ashes of a chaotic past. But as she opened her mouth, propelled by determination, a shadow loomed just outside the cafe's entrance, drawing her gaze and inviting a fresh wave of uncertainty. Who was that waiting outside, and how would they change this pivotal moment? As Emily's heart raced, her eyes instinctively flicked toward the figure lingering just outside the cafe. The silhouette, slightly obscured by the light streaming through the glass door, felt unsettlingly familiar. Was it someone from her past? Someone who could plunge her into a new labyrinth of conflict? "Focus," she internally chastised herself, forcing her gaze back to her father. The tension in the air thickened with unspoken words as she glanced at him. His brows knotted, questioning her intent. This moment felt bigger than both of them, an intersection of past and future she had feared for so long. "Dad," she pressed, "I need to understand why you chose to walk away." Each word emerged more boldly, her voice gaining strength like roots intertwining in the soil of her resolve. I can't keep pretending everything is okay anymore. He shifted in his seat, his body language shrinking back. I never walked away from you, he replied, and yet the fissures in his tone betrayed the cracks in their shared history. I don't want excuses, she interjected, frustration bubbling to the surface. I want the truth. What I'm tired of is expecting you to come through. I'm going to need you to expand on that, not just give me the same old rhetoric. For a moment, silence consumed them. Emily's pulse screamed for her to backtrack, to mask her assertion with gentler words, but she held firm. She was not the little girl broken by abandonment anymore. She was a woman facing the shadows of her father's choices, her voice now a weapon of clarity. At this juncture, something shifted in her father's demeanor. The tension in his posture loosened slightly, hints of remorse flickering across his features. What more do you want me to say? I was scared. His admission was almost a whisper, coated with the weight of regret and vulnerability. Emily felt a wave of empathy wash over her, but fought it down. She had grown weary of softening her stance for his frailty. You were, she echoed, but that fear turned into choices that hurt me. I'm done hiding behind that fear too. His eyes met hers, a blend of uncertainty and an unexpected flicker of recognition. In this moment, Emily grasped that she was not merely confronting her father, she was confronting herself, her own fears, her hesitations, her programming to please others. The recognition ignited a newfound conviction deep within her. As their conversation unfolded, layers of their past began to unravel. Emily realized she wasn't just rewriting the narrative, she was constructing a mosaic of nuance, of hurt, healing, and honesty that had previously eluded both of them. Each piece she uncovered pushed her further into uncharted emotional territory, battling the urge to fall back into the comforts of silence. But just as clarity began to settle, a sudden, jarring realization thundered through her thoughts. She had to decide whether she would allow her father to define her actions moving forward. Could she forgive while still setting boundaries? Could she own her emotions without forgiving fully? The implications roiled within her, demanding resolution. As she considered the delicate balance between understanding and boundaries, the figure outside the cafe stepped closer, casting a long shadow into the interior. Was it a coincidence or fate interceding? A need for resolution began to swell within her. Could the arrival of this stranger change everything? Would they bring more confrontation, or perhaps an unexpected avenue toward her healing? As uncertainty mingled with anticipation, Emily took a deep breath, preparing for a confrontation with the past that was daringly close to colliding with her future. Figure outside the cafe stopped just shy of the entrance, and Emily's heart thrummed louder, caught in the tension between the known and the unpredictable. The world within the cafe fell away as her focus sharpened, zeroing in on the silhouette. A part of her was ready for confrontation, another part dreaded what lay ahead. Emily, her father's voice cut through the haze, startling her back to the moment. You're not really about to do this, are you? His question hovered in the air like a warning, and the knot in her stomach twisted tighter. What was this? Was it the confrontation? Or was it the act of claiming her own narrative, despite the hesitation painted across her father's face? I need to, she said, her voice firmer than before. I've waited too long to break free of this cycle. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. You think this will solve anything? Digging up old wounds? Emily leaned forward, anchoring her elbows against the table, grounding herself. It's not about solving, it's about understanding, about acknowledging that those wounds exist and have shaped both of us. Across from her, his features hardened, the defense mechanisms re-engaged. The years had trained him well. And what if the truth is too painful? That's the risk, isn't it? She shot back, feeling an unfamiliar rush of empowerment flooding her veins. But it's a risk I'm willing to take. Her determination hung palpably in the space between them, challenging his reluctance. Outside the cafe, the figure lingered closer to the glass, and Emily's eyes darted toward them again, an instinct whispering against her resolve. Was this person a harbinger of change, a signpost toward a deeper truth? With that uncertainty buzzing in her mind, she took a deep breath, deciding she wouldn't let distractions derail her any longer. Dad, I realize that forgiving may not be immediate, but it's what I need to reclaim that part of my life. I can't keep tying my worth to your choices. The silence that followed painted the moment with urgency. She was battling not only her father's reservations, but also the weight of her own fear of rejection. Still, she pressed on, her thoughts crystallizing. Every time we dance around the issues, I feel like I'm stuck in the past. I need to know where I stand. I need to reclaim my story. Her father's eyes softened momentarily before a flicker of resentment clouded them again. You think you have it all figured out, don't you? Deciding what you're owed as if I haven't been struggling too? Emily recoiled slightly from the weight of that comment. Struggling? How many times had his struggles been an excuse for her pain? Yet, was it fair to underestimate his journey? One of her strengths, she realized, was compassion, but that couldn't become a crutch, allowing the past to drive her future. I don't think it's about debts and credits, Dad, she said, pursuing the path of honesty. It's about communication and trust, about being open enough not to scare each other away. As the truth of her words rippled through the space, the figure outside shifted again, and Emily felt a pulse of anxiety. What if this person had the answer she sought? What if they interconnected her past with her present in ways she never imagined? Before she could dwell on it any longer, her father stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. The abruptness shocked Emily, sending her heart racing. No, Emily, you're too focused on this and not enough on understanding reality. Reality? The word struck her as profoundly ambiguous. Wasn't each person's reality a reflection of their fears, choices, and failures? Dad, I need my reality to reflect my strength, not your perceptions. The figure outside finally stepped into the light, and Emily's breath caught in her throat. She knew that face. An old friend, someone from her past who could tip the balance, not just for her, but for her father as well. With anticipation and dread colliding within her, she realized it was time to confront more than just her father's choices. She'd have to confront her own. Would she have the courage to face the chapter that was about to unfold? Could this encounter provide the clarity she so desperately sought, or would it add to her tumult? Emily glanced between her father and the newcomer, barely containing the swell of emotion rising within her, wondering what her next move would reveal. Time momentarily halted as Emily and her old friend locked eyes, a surge of recognition washing over her. Memories of shared laughter and whispered secrets resurrected feelings she thought she'd tucked away neatly in the past. The figure had become more than a mere silhouette. It was a living reminder of her earlier self. Jake, she managed, the name catching in her throat. His presence stirred a cocktail of nostalgia and guilt within her. Their friendship had been a beacon during some of her darkest moments, yet their parting had come wrapped in unresolved misunderstandings and unexpressed truths. Emily, he replied, his voice steady, but his gaze shifted toward her father with a hint of apprehension. There was a moment of tension that hung thick in the air, a fierce wrestling of unspoken emotions. What did this encounter mean? Did it signal an opportunity to mend more than just her relationship with her father? Her heart raced as she faced the reality of her situation, two pivotal figures of her life eclipsing her moment. Her father's heavy disappointment bore down on her. She sensed the sticky web of his worries reaching for her, while the past beckoned her with Jake's familiarity. Can you give us a moment? She asked, feeling the weight of the conversation pressing down on her. Emily wasn't asking for permission, but making a demand rooted in her need for autonomy. Denying herself this moment felt like surrendering to the ghosts of her past once more. Her father hesitated, a guard still raised, but the familiar softness in his eyes returned as he looked at her. Fine, but this doesn't change what's necessary, Emily. At his words, something shifted within Emily. She was no longer a passive participant in the narrative. No, it doesn't. It changes everything. She turned towards Jake as her father departed reluctantly, the cafe doorway swinging shut with an audible thud. "Hi," she said softly, unsure whether warmth or resentment should color her words. The walls of her composure began to buckle under the weight of vulnerability that had built up over so many years. "We should talk," Jake said, stepping closer, his presence calming her nerves even as they bristled with apprehension. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me after everything." His words hung in the space between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. The past clamored loudly, each memory layered with unresolved feelings. But there was urgency, too. This moment could extend into clarity or further entrench confusion. Her decision, her growth. "Everything feels like a tangled web right now," she confessed. "I thought I was ready to embrace the truth, but I'm drowning in it." Jake met her gaze with understanding etched into his features. "We've both been tangled in the web of our pasts. It's why I came." His straightforwardness cut through the air, revealing a confidence that fit him like a second skin. She considered his words carefully. This was a moment that could unravel into bitterness or unfurl into healing. Her own feelings danced dangerously close to the edges of anger and hurt, a painful legacy of lost time and broken communication. "Why now?" she probed. "After all this time?" "Because I realized I couldn't avoid the truth either. We both owe it to ourselves to confront what happened. Maybe we can learn from it," he answered, the resolve in his voice invigorating her. How simple, yet daunting the path ahead seemed, confronting truths, expressing feelings, and above all, taking responsibility. A surge of energy coursed through Emily. These conversations didn't have to be defined by their dark past. They could forge a new narrative, one rooted in growth and mutual understanding. If she was going to reclaim her story, she needed to step into this moment fully, with all its messiness. "All right, let's talk," she said, feeling her heart rate steadying as determination took hold. She was finally on the brink of unearthing something transformative. As they settled in for an earnest discussion, Emily felt a shift within herself, a burgeoning sense of purpose emerging in the faces of past wounds. What lay before her felt like a vast unknown, but perhaps that unknown held the clarity she craved. With every word exchanged, every painful truth laid bare, she committed fully to the journey ahead. Could this collaboration lead her to personal revelations and hidden strengths? And as Emily delved deeper, steeling herself for what lay in the threads of their shared past, a new how far would she go to reclaim not only her narrative, but also the bonds that once defined her? As they settled into the small booth at the back of the cafe, Emily felt an electric mix of hope and trepidation. She glanced at Jake, who seemed intent on her, his eyes a blend of anticipation and something more profound, perhaps understanding. "What do you remember most about our time together?" she began, her voice steadier than she felt. It was a simple question, yet it served to lay the groundwork for the conversation ahead. "I remember the laughter," Jake replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "How effortlessly we found joy in the little things. We were unfiltered back then, you know? No constraints." His words struck a chord within her, resonating somberly against the backdrop of her current life. "Joy," she repeated softly, realizing how foreign the concept had become. Here she was, entangled in a complicated relationship with her father and heartbroken over paths not taken. "But that changed," Jake continued, his voice softening, pulling her from her contemplation. "We lost ourselves amid the expectations. You had big plans, and I felt so far behind you." This admission left Emily reeling. She had, indeed, carried the weight of ambition on her shoulders, and in doing so had inadvertently isolated those she cared about. You felt that? When I was pursuing my dreams, I thought I was empowering us, she confessed, grappling with the realization that her drive might have stifled Jake's ambitions instead of inspiring. Jake nodded, his expression charged with empathy. You were chasing your dreams, and I fell into my own insecurities. I didn't want to burden you, but I also didn't reach out. That silence pushed us apart. His words coaxed a long suppressed ache within her, the longing for connection and mutual understanding surfacing with renewed intensity. What if I'd known? What if we hadn't drifted apart? The stricken tone of her voice surprised her. It was more a query about herself than about their past. Could she have changed the narrative then? Maybe we weren't ready, Jake said thoughtfully. We were good at pretending everything was fine when it might not have been. There was undeniable truth in his statement. Emily felt the painful weight of the years they had lost battling their individual demons, all while neglecting the bond that had once defined them. So what now? She asked, desperate to know how to navigate the complex emotional maze stretching before her. We can start fresh. Truthfully, he replied. It wasn't bold, but it felt like an anchor amidst the turbulence of memories. Be vulnerable. Admit the messiness of who we've become. It's the only way to prevent repeating the same mistakes. Emily considered his words, realizing they etched a path of personal development paved with confrontation, not just of their past, but of her own identity. If she wanted to truly reclaim her narrative, she needed to confront her vulnerabilities, the lingering fears about her father's expectations, and the shadows of her own failures. Jake, I've been so focused on my career, on trying to create this perfect life, that I forgot what it's like to connect with people who matter, she confessed, tears prickling the corners of her eyes. I thought success would fill the void I felt inside, but it hasn't. It won't, he replied, extending a hand across the table, a gesture that felt both tentative and powerful. True connections are what sustain us. It's time we embrace that again. As their hands met, a rush of clarity surged through Emily. This single moment ignited within her the desire to break free from self-imposed constraints. She wouldn't just redefine her relationship with Jake. It was time to reevaluate her aspirations and learn to balance ambition with emotional honesty. In that instant, Emily felt a profound resolve. Whatever the struggle ahead, she would confront it. But there remained a lingering fear, one she had quietly ignored for too long. What if reconnecting with Jake forced her to face deeper insecurities rooted in her distant relationship with her father? The questions danced in her mind, a challenge waiting to be faced. Could she truly change the trajectory of her life while healing these vital connections? Or would she once again become ensnared in old patterns? With her pulse quickening, Emily realized the journey had only just begun. The stakes were higher than ever, and it was difficult to determine if she was ready for the revelations in store. Would this newfound understanding empower her, or would it only uncover more truths she was not ready to confront? And as she breathed deeply, a looming uncertainty washed over her. What vital truths lay hidden in the depths of her relationships, and what would it take to uncover them? Emily leaned back in the booth, her hand still enveloped in Jake's, the warmth contrasting sharply with the chill of doubt that had seeped into her heart. The cafe buzzed with chatter, yet she felt enveloped in a distinct silence, a bubble that isolated them from the world beyond their table. The clarity sparked by their conversation forced her to confront not only the past, but also the unresolved issues thrumming beneath her surface. In her mind, she mapped out how her relationship with her father had shaped her ambition. The pressure to succeed had always loomed large, but now it hovered with added weight. Could she forgive herself for prioritizing career over connection? Jake, what if I find that I've lost too much to fix things? The vulnerability in her voice surprised even her. She had built walls around her heart, fortified by years of chasing success and avoiding conflict. Admitting that fear felt like hammering away at those defenses. You won't know until you try. Jake's steadfast gaze anchored her, pulling her back from the brink of despair. But running away won't help. You have to confront it all. The expectations, the disappointments. You've got to reclaim your narrative. His words resonated, striking a chord of urgency within her. There was a certain bravery required in facing her father and untangling the years of misunderstanding and pressure that clouded their relationship. It wasn't merely about confessing her struggles, it was about seeking understanding and maybe, just maybe, creating space for empathy. With a newfound determination, Emily took a deep breath, sealing a silent pact with herself. "I'll call him," she declared. The decision spiraled inside her like an electric charge, terrifying yet exhilarating. "You're ready to face him?" Jake asked, a hint of admiration in his voice. "It's about time." She held his gaze, desperately channeling resolve. "I need to untangle my past if I'm going to move forward. I can't keep using my career as a shield." Jake nodded in agreement, manifesting his support without words. Their hands lingered together, a reminder that in pursuit of ambition, she could still nurture meaningful connections. Yet the haunting image of her father's unfulfilled expectations hung in the air, casting shadows over her resolve. As they stood to leave the cafe, Emily's heart raced, not from fear, but from anticipation. The notion that by embracing vulnerability, she could reshape her future ignited something within her. A flicker of hope ignited with each step toward the exit. She would not only call her father, she would confront him. This confrontation wasn't merely personal. It served as a crucible for her growth, a test that demanded she engage with her past in order to reclaim her future. Over the next week, the reality of that phone call loomed large. Every time her phone vibrated, a gentle reminder of her willingness to engage, the weight of her decision settled upon her shoulders like a mantle. Doubts clawed at her resolve. What if it went poorly? What if her father didn't understand? In the end, she resolved to frame these fears differently. Each question transformed into a challenge and a doorway to potential resolution. With each ounce of courage collected, the anticipation of discovery began to outweigh the fear of rejection. Emily focused on her intent to create understanding rather than strife. On the day of the call, with a trembling finger paused over the screen, she took a breath and reminded herself that she was reclaiming not just her past, but her narrative. The moment of truth arrived as she pressed the call button. Heart racing, mind swirling, she felt the energy shift around her. Whatever the outcome, she was embracing change, ready to uncover the truths that had long been hidden. But she had no way of knowing what her father's response would bring. Would it foster healing and understanding, or deepen old wounds? As the phone rang, a mix of excitement and dread coursed through her veins. What lay on the other side of that call? Would this be the transformative moment she hoped for, or the catalyst for more profound revelations about her family's tangled history? The phone rang, a sharp, piercing sound that reverberated through Emily's thoughts, drowning out any last remnants of her confidence. Each chime resonated like a countdown, urging her toward an inevitable confrontation. Swallowing hard, she steeled herself, recalling Jake's unwavering support. Whatever lay ahead, it was no longer just about her father. It was also about her, who she had become and who she wanted to be. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was gruff with surprise, a voice she had both longed for and dreaded. It was the sound of her father, a man who had always felt like a fortress, strong, imposing, and often impenetrable. "Dad, it's Emily." Despite the tremor in her voice, there was a strength in reclaiming her space in this conversation. "I wanted to talk." "Is everything all right?" A hint of concern threaded through his response, but it felt guarded, like a snare waiting to snap closed. No, I really need to talk about us." Her heart quickened as she navigated the trembling path between old wounds and new understandings. It was both terrifying and liberating to place her emotions on the table, and yet, deep inside, she understood that honesty was the only way forward. "What's this about?" he asked, tension crackling in the air as if they were two opposing forces. I've spent too long avoiding this. I feel like I've lost part of myself chasing what I thought you wanted, she blurted, each word a brick falling from her carefully constructed wall. I need you to know how I've struggled, how much I felt I had to prove. A silence stretched, heavy and oppressive, each passing second dragged by the weight of her own anticipation. What she had feared most was the trepidation lacing his silence, a mirror of her own doubts reflected back at her. Emily, I had my reasons. I just wanted the best for you. He sounded defensive, a pitch she recognized but had grown weary of accepting. Best for me? The words slipped out, unfiltered and raw. Or best for you? I don't want to feel like my only value is tied to your dreams. I want to find my own path. The statement hung in the air like a rift that threatened to widen irrevocably. It tapped sharply against years of disappointment veiled in ambition, a familiar script that had long since grown stale. Could he see her now, truly see her? It was never meant that way, he finally replied, confusion threaded with regret. There was a softness to his tone now, a crack in the hardness that she'd often attributed to his nature. Then let's change that. I can't keep pretending everything is fine. I want us to understand each other, not to just accept a facade. We need to talk openly, even if it's uncomfortable, she pressed, her own heartbeat echoing in her ears, a counterpoint to the tension bridging the distance between them. As they spoke, Emily felt like she was reclaiming her narrative. With every assertion she made, the internal weight lightened, like shedding layers of protective armor she no longer needed. The conversation morphed from an interrogation into an exploration, a dance of both fragility and strength. Time lost meaning as they delved deeper into the depths of miscommunication that had defined their relationship. Questions turned into answers, walls crumbled into vulnerability. It was a radical shift from the distant exchanges they had long built their lives around. And for the first time, Emily could hear the hesitation wrapped up in her father's responses, the uncertainty that came from realizing he too had struggled to connect. By the time they reached a tentative agreement to continue this vulnerable dialogue, Emily realized she had not only confronted her father, but had also discovered a wealth of inner resilience she didn't know existed. "Thank you for this," he said, his voice quieter now, almost reverent. "I didn't realize how far apart we had grown." A flicker of hope sparked within her. "There's still so much for us to navigate. It's not about fixing everything at once, but I want to try, together." As the call ended, a surge of determination washed over her. This was only the beginning. A transformative chapter lay ahead, one that required both her and her father to lean into the discomfort rather than shy away from it. But even as she hung up, a lingering uncertainty remained. Could their newfound commitment to understanding evolve into healing? Fueled by a mix of belief and skepticism, Emily prepared to face the next challenge: how to navigate the complexities of a relationship reborn and confront the shadows of the past that still haunted her. Would she find the stability to reconcile her identity with her family's expectations, or would old patterns threaten to unravel her progress once more? Emily sat cross-legged on the floor of her modest living room, her laptop balanced precariously on a pile of cushions. Faint light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow that seemed at odds with the tempest within her mind. Replaying the conversation with her father, she felt an exhilarating mix of clarity and fear. Each time she replayed their exchange, it was as if a new layer of her emotions peeled away, revealing the depth of her long-buried frustrations, but also the hope that had sparked within her. As she opened her email, the starkness of the white canvas confronted her. She was determined to draft her thoughts, intentions, and plans for the future that she had previously shelved. This process of articulation was her first act of self-definition. It was a catalyst for her transformation. Just as she was considering how to begin, a new email popped into her inbox. It was from the organizer of the local community art showcase, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that she had hesitated to enter out of fear of rejection. Staring at the invitation, she hesitated. Would she risk exposing her work, her identity, to the unpredictability of public scrutiny? Remembering the hurt from her past, the remnants of criticism that her father had sometimes inadvertently delivered, fear gripped her. But then she recalled their conversation. It had been about bravery, about stepping out into the light, even when shadows threatened to engulf her. Without overthinking, she clicked respond and expressed her interest in showcasing her pieces. Her heart raced, a mixture of elation and terror, but this was part of her new commitment to herself, to confront her fears rather than withdraw. As the adrenaline ebbed, Emily allowed a moment of reflection. She was aware that her father's approval always loomed large, but now it felt different. She was reclaiming the narrative of her life. The pressure of his expectations no longer seemed insurmountable, but instead a backdrop she could work against, a stepping stone rather than an obstacle. With her hands trembling slightly, she picked up her paintbrush, something she hadn't done in weeks. The canvas in front of her represented not just a medium to create something aesthetically pleasing, but a battlefield, a space for her to channel her healing, her assertion, and her journey towards self-discovery. The first strokes felt clunky, awkward, but each brush pull tugged at the tangled strands of her insecurities, unraveling them thread by thread. Suddenly, a memory came surging back, a table filled with friends and family around her, laughter twinkling like stars in her eyes. And then, the moment the cake, a masterpiece she had been so proud of, was thrown onto the floor in a moment of carelessness. That day had felt like a devastating blow, a crushing moment where she learned that not all celebrations end in joy. Yet now, she could see the symbolic potential within that chaos, the resilience that followed her heartache. She could choose how to respond. She could choose to create something beautiful from what had been broken. With newfound vigor, she began to lose herself in colors. Each hue embodied not just artistic expression, but a verbal defiance against doubt and familial shadows. These moments of creation weren't about meticulous perfection. They were expressions of her new identity, raw and real. But beneath her exhilaration lay a seed of uncertainty. Was this new ambition compatible with the ongoing conversations with her father? Would he see her endeavors as authentic growth or merely as rebellion against his life's vision? The balance felt precarious, a tightrope walk of old tensions and new beginnings. Hours passed before she stepped back to survey her work. The canvas transformed, vibrant and chaotic, yet beautifully authentic. As she gazed at it, a creeping doubt emerged. Would it be recognized, or would it drown beneath a wave of past expectations? In that moment, the phone buzzed again, her father, reaching out, perhaps sensing her mixed feelings. This could be another opportunity for discussion, or simply another reminder of the shadows she was trying to escape. With a deep breath, she pressed accept, ready to tackle the nuance of her changing relationship head on. Would this conversation deepen their bond or bring her face to face with the same hurdles she thought she had overcome? The stakes had transformed, but so had she. The decision looming ahead cast its shadow just as brightly as the colors she had just splashed onto the canvas. Emily felt a wave of anticipation wash over her, the moment of choice transforming her reality once again. Emily Thompson found herself standing before her easel, the sight of her newly completed canvas eliciting feelings of pride and anxiety simultaneously. Each brushstroke appeared to recognize her journey, colors bursting forth in a chaotic array, pulses of her growth shining brightly amidst shadows of the past. It was a masterpiece reflecting the resilience she had hoped to embody since her chaotic graduation day. Days after her heartfelt conversation with her father, she had delved deeper into her art, using it as a bridge between her struggles and triumphs. Each creation allowed her to reinterpret the complexities of her familial relationships, ultimately weaving her new narrative of reclamation. Yet there remained an unshakable sense of unease within. Had she truly conquered the internal turbulence that once ruled her life? With anticipation buzzing within her like a live wire, Emily prepared for the upcoming local art showcase. As she gathered her pieces, a sense of determination washed over her. She would share her work not just as an artist, but as a woman stepping out of the shadows to claim her own voice. This was not merely an exhibition, but a public declaration of her independent identity, one that had been stifled for far too long. The night of the showcase arrived, vibrant and bustling with energy. She stepped into the gallery, eyes after eyes glancing toward her collection, and a wondrous mix of pride and vulnerability swirled within her. Here, she was no longer Emily, the daughter shackled to her father's expectations, but Emily, the artist embracing her authenticity. As attendees filtered through, some paused to admire her artwork. Emily mused over their reactions. Were they strikingly profound or merely polite? The whispers intertwined with her internal dialogue. This could be the moment where she proved she was more than just her past. It was a chance for validation, freedom, something she hadn't felt in far too long. Then, amidst her countless thoughts, she felt a familiar touch upon her shoulder. Turning, her heart raced as she found numerous faces, including the one she had longed to see, Jake. He cradled a supportive smile that filled her with warmth. "You did it," he whispered, pride shining in his eyes. "It's incredible." Her heart swelled with gratitude as they embraced. With Jake beside her, she felt emboldened. The art showcased her journey amid the backdrop of chaos and healing, now no longer overshadowed by fear. Later in the evening, just as she was marveling at her newfound confidence, she spotted her father standing near her work, scanning the pieces carefully. The realization struck her. There he was, stepping beyond the threshold of... Their eyes met, her pulse quickening. "Is this all you?" he asked, awe gripped within his voice, breaking the distance that had long lingered between them. "Yes," she replied, the surprising in her tones surprising even herself. "Each piece reflects what I've been going through, all my struggles and my journey toward understanding." His brow furrowed as understanding washed over him. "I had no idea how deeply you felt. I am sorry for not recognizing your pain sooner," he murmured, the sincerity in his voice urging her walls to soften. "I'm learning to forgive you," she admitted, feeling newfound liberation as the weight of unexpressed expectations began to lift. "Can we talk further?" he asked, his eyes locking onto hers with an urgency that ignited a flicker of hope, a spark that possibly indicated opening doors rather than fear of reminiscing old wounds. "Yes," she replied, determination rooted in her heart, "but on my terms." The conference felt liberating, an opportunity to engage in deeper conversations without the burden of her past expectations suffocating her spirit. They spent the following weeks in candid exchanges, embarking on a fragile yet genuine path towards rebuilding their connection. Each dialogue became a testament to her newfound voice as Emily grew into her own skin. Her understanding not just of herself, but also of her father's vulnerabilities lay the groundwork for mutual recognition. Through this reconciliation, Emily embraced the complexity of their familial bond. She learned that healing is not linear. It comes with a vast range of emotions. As they forged a pathway forward, her relationship blossomed into one marked by authenticity and vulnerability. Months later, she stood in the gallery once more for a second showcase, a curtain call of sorts, her evolution showcased through painted canvases, capturing moments of hurt, resilience, and now deep acceptance. The weight of her former self adorned her journey, but this time it no longer pushed her down. It became a stepping stone to her present. Having conquered the shadows of the past, Emily embraced the realization she was capable, deserving, and above all, free to forge her narrative. She took a step towards her father, a smile creeping onto her face, a promise that together they would continue to bridge this newfound gap between their worlds. And as her art connected with others, it reminded her of the transformative power of resilience, the unwavering belief in oneself amid chaos. In that moment, she knew the journey had merely begun. And with each, she could conquer the challenges ahead, aware that true success sprouted from within. The call to action for all those following her story: subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this life-changing journey. You need to support now. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the power of resilience. Vital importance of lifting each other through these actions.